Errol Spence must fight Keith Thurman or drop the WBC title. But what's the holdup? Alright, y'all, so a lot of news coming out today, man. A lot of news. Didn't have a lot of time to try to address everything, but there was some news that dropped this morning regarding Eminos Santanios versus Errol Spence Jr. and what's going on with the WBA. Basically, what was said within the article is Errol Spence and Eminos Santanios signed a contract earlier this year for Errol Spence to basically fight Ordanius Ugas. Eminos Santanios took step-aside money, but also signed a contract stating that Spence has to fight him next as a mandatory. But we all know that the news came out about a week ago saying that the WBC mandated Keith Thurman, and most people actually believe that Errol Spence is fighting Keith Thurman next. Now, that could be very well true, but the problem with that is Eminos Santanios has to make a call. He has to make a call whether he wants to fight Spence and use that mandatory that the WBA gave him, because he signed that first before Keith Thurman and the WBC came into play. So Eminos Santanios is actually first on the list. But it's crazy because the IBF and Boots Ennis are the ones who've been waiting the longest. The IBF is the first belt Errol Spence ever picked up, and he picked that belt up off of Kell Brook. Now, that Kell Brook fight was years and years ago. Errol Spence hasn't defended that title alone, like the mandatories haven't been recognized for that title since he won it from Kell Brook. So a lot of people feel like it should actually be Boots and the IBF next, but for some reason the IBF doesn't want to pull the trigger on that fight. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on with that. It's crazy what's going on with these sanctioning bodies. They need to go away. Boxing needs to change. Okay, so, and then I read some more news. I read that Virgil Ortiz actually doesn't even want to be the mandatory for Santonius or Sandonius or Eminos Santanios, or however you say his name. Who cares? He actually wants to enforce his WBO mandatory, which is for Terence Crawford. And Terence Crawford should be his next fight. After Terence Crawford finished with David Anise, he should actually be fighting Virgil Ortiz next. That should be how it works, because Virgil Ortiz is number one in the WBO. Now, a lot of people feel like that's not going to happen for whatever you want to say, whether it's Crawford ducking, I don't know. But I do know that it's up to Eminos Santanios whether Keith Thurman and Errol Spence actually fight. It's not up to the WBC and their mandatory, because they can get sidestepped by the WBA and the contract that Eminos Santanios actually signed. Now, there is another stipulation in there. Step aside money. He can get paid to move out of the way of the Keith Thurman fight. Will he do that is the question. And my question about that is, why would he step aside to allow Keith Thurman that opportunity? I don't understand that part. Why would he not want to get a shot at all those titles and just hand that off to Keith Thurman unless it was extremely lucrative? Now, if they offer him some ridiculous amount of money, then he probably won't end up fighting Errol Spence. He might not end up fighting Errol Spence anyway. He might go with his mandatory for that WBA regular title. So he could possibly go with his mandatory, or he could go with the Spence fight. He could actually fight Virgil Ortiz, but Virgil Ortiz seemed like he wasn't really interested in that fight. Virgil Ortiz, I believe, turned Boots down as well to try to make a Boots Ennis fight. So when it comes to the welterweight division, man, it's all effed up right now, and it's all got to do with the sanctioning bodies, because they don't have there is no tournament style system to the sanctioning bodies. Even though they do the ranking system 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, they don't honor their own ranking system. And you could put your finger on the fact that the WBO allowed Terence Crawford to fight David Anise, who I don't even think is ranked in the WBO. He might be ranked like really low, like around number 10 or something like that in the WBO. But it makes no sense why they keep going down these same roads, because the fights that need to be made and the fights that fans want to see are actually the fights that get pushed to the side. That the fights that need to happen are the fights that never happen because all of these sanctioning bodies want to enforce their rules when they should just make the fights when the fights are available. If the fights are available to be made, go ahead and make those fights and stop giving people step-aside money. Stop doing this, stop doing that. Force these people to fight each other. Now, there's another thing that's out there regarding Errol Spence. And everybody knows my feelings toward Errol Spence. I'm not the hugest Errol Spence fan in the world, but I do believe that Errol Spence is the best in the welterweight division of today. Now, I got this guy on my shirt, so y'all should already know who I think is the best welterweight. But he's last generation, and we don't know if he's coming back or not. If he does come back, those guys could be in a little bit of trouble depending on the version of Pacquiao we actually get. But when it comes to today and now, Errol Spence is the best welterweight. And it's unfortunate that people are out here saying that he's a drunk, that he wrecked his car, all this crazy stuff, that he's hiding from Boots Ennis, which I completely doubt. What's going on with Errol Spence is he's in a peculiar situation. Errol Spence's plan should be quite obvious to everybody at this point. He was trying to force the Crawford fight. That was the only fight he wanted because he was trying to get out of the division. Doesn't want to be in the division anymore. He's outgrown the division. Now, what Terence Crawford in tune did is trapped him within the division and trapped him within all of those mandatory fights. And it's a great strategy. Terence Crawford is playing a strategy game. I don't blame him. But it is extremely dangerous because what's going to end up happening is, and I believe that Errol Spence should do this, is just drop the title. You know, force someone else to have to take on that competition, because it almost seems like the sanctioning bodies are trying to feed Errol Spence to the sharks. They're not putting him on the pedestal that he belongs on by accomplishing unifying 3 titles, but they're willing to put Terence Crawford on a pedestal for doing absolutely nothing. It's crazy what's going on in the sport of boxing right now. And what's going to end up happening is Errol Spence is going to end up leaving the division and going to 154. And a lot of guys are going to be without that big fight. Now, they can go for those titles and everything, but what's going to end up happening is everybody's pay-per-view numbers are going to tank. Everybody's viewership is going to go down because Errol Spence is actually the one bringing in the majority of the eyeballs. So it's crazy, man. I don't know what these sanctioning bodies are thinking. I don't know what you fans are thinking by coming to my channel, thinking I'm just reporting on stuff just for the fun of it. I actually research every video I make. If I don't reference an article, it's directly from an article. If I'm not referencing an article, it's directly from an article. So this stuff didn't come exactly from me. I put the words to it. They put the information out there. So if you want to get mad at somebody, go get mad at them. I really don't care personally. At the end of the day, this is going to end up in an even worse mess than it already is, man. And I hate to see that for Errol Spence Jr. I hate what's going on for the sport of boxing, period. And I just hope everybody in this situation makes the right decision. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that down in the comment section below. Hit that like button for me. Share. Subscribe. Holler at me on all social media platforms. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. More than likely to get a response on the tube. Holler at me over there. And we are out of hand.
It's your boy Keith, neighborhood employee. Niggas knew that I was coming with fire. Y'all ain't up to my pie and up under a car. Your head under a tie, it's the S and the I. Player, we supposed to win. I'm in the booth focusing with coke in hand. Dude hate it when you see the chief running in. Ass mouth hurting like his wisdom teeth coming in. Now that's a roundhouse kick. Come round your house, letting rounds out quick. From Newburgh to downtown, it's that Midwest to down south shit. Y'all ain't fucking weed. She chillin', saying tryna put the veal on the mouth. What's good? She nothing, saying tryna show his niggas how to round.